Okay, thank you for tuning into Stampscaping 101. I just kind of wanted to play around with some graphite pencils of mine. I haven't used these in years and years and years and years and years, and I kind of got the idea to kind of play around with it a little bit, working with some of the tools in a volunteer school art course. And I wanted to see specifically how these graphite pencils would look kind of done in a monochromatic format using, I wasn't really thinking of black ink, but I didn't have a dark enough gray ink. But I wanted to see if we could come up with something that looked like a pencil drawing. Now this one really doesn't because there's too much contrast between that black, but I think when we stamp something out in like a gray that's kind of closer to this graphite, I'd have to see it's out there. If any of you know kind of a darker gray that would look fairly dark on kind of a matte paper, something that's very conducive to graphite, let me know. Tend to take a look at it. My gray Marvy came out too light, you know, like that. So we'd have to have something a lot closer to black, but kind of in a gray scale. So really dark gray would be really good. But I think if we did something like that, I think, you know, using these graphite types of applicators and tools and whatnot, graphite sticks are really fun. I think we can come up with something that looks like a drawing, you know, which might be kind of fun. But one of the things I mentioned in this video is, you know, there's something kind of nice about the, you know, that reflective quality of that, you know, graphite, you know, that shininess of the graphite. And I think we can come up with some kind of interesting looks with that. I don't know if it's going to be a singular media for it, or maybe some kind of multimedia using graphite, or just in graphite in itself, but kind of fun. It's kind of a shading kind of exercise, and I don't know, it's kind of interesting to go back and do that. I'm just working on some, you know, the backside of my glossy cardstock, so it's not even really good paper that I'm, or a surface that I'm using it in, but some, I don't know, reasonably interesting type of look to it. So anyways, short video here, just using the one medium here and kind of struggling through some of the H's because I kind of forgot what using some of those super hard leads, you know, or graphites felt like, but I don't know, kind of fun stuff to play around with. Okay, I just finished a series of scenes that required a lot of color because there were 6 of them. So I just cleaned off all of my stylus tools, and I was about to start a very large full-page scene and full color, and I thought, let me try something else. There's something else that I've been wanting to get around to, and that's using some of the various types of graphite pencils and the various whatever densities, hardnesses, and I haven't done that yet, but I've been wanting to try and get around to it at some point in time, and I thought now's a good time. I was doing some volunteer work at my son's school, and they have an art program there, and it's run by a volunteer group called Art Core, and they do something in graphite in some of the older classes, and I don't know, they were showing me a 6B pencil or something like that, and I haven't used graphites in such a long time, and I thought, I wonder how that would look in stamping. And here's the thing, I normally stamp these main scenes in black, but I was thinking about using it in a dark gray and then applying graphite over it so that it would look very similar in tone to the pencil graphite. And I was just kind of curious to know if we could make stamp scenes look like a drawing. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking this gray is going to be a little bit too light, though. So I might want it darker. Let's do a little experiment. All right, now this isn't the best paper. This is cardstock. This is the cardstock that I normally work on. It's glossy, okay? I'm just using the back side of it, which is not coated or anything like that. So if you're working with a coated matte, it would be better than this one. So if I'm working on this one, you know, and it comes out okay, then I would imagine it would work, you know, really good with a better paper or a better surface. All right, now let's see. I think this is going to come out a little bit too light, and I might need to do it in a darker or a black or something, or some kind of fusion of the gray and black. I think this is going to come out probably maybe less than 50%, maybe a 30%. That's just too light. I want it darker than that. Let's give it a test here. Yeah, that's really, really light. Okay, we might have to just go to black, unless we're doing something that's represents something like really deep fog or something like that, which, I don't know, wouldn't be a bad thing. Now that I look at it, you know, if I did some kind of graphite look on this, it might look kind of interesting. I'll have to keep that one and try it out later, but let's just go with the black. It's not going to match the graphite, kind of the more silvery graphite of the pencils, but I don't know, let me test it out. Or, I'm wondering if I can go with some of this, then go over it with a gray. No, let's just try it in this. Alright. Or I was wondering if I have a little bit of a gray pen, if that would work. Let's just do it in black. It won't match up perfectly. If I do it in black, then it might be something a little bit more akin to something like a Conte crayon or something of that sort, if you know what those are, or like a charcoal pencil or something like that. Let's just go with this one. Okay. See, I like a coated paper so that it stamps out a little bit more flat. Okay, you can see there's some tooth to this. I don't know, maybe that'll work in our benefit, though, having it like that, because it looks a little bit more tooth, like we've gone over into pencil. We've been getting a little bit of a moire effect with the camera here. Okay, so, I don't know, there's grayscale in there. There's variations of it just because the kind of the toothy nature of the paper. Okay, now if I'm going to go over this in graphite, I don't think there's going to be any way I'm going to be able to stamp over graphite, so anything that we're going to get down in terms of impressions on the paper, we better do it now. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to stamp this moon out in the background. Do I want to do it in the gray? Or do I want to do it in black? If I do it in black, it'll be a little bit more pronounced. Or if I do it in gray, then it'll look like it's kind of pushed back in the distance a little bit more. I don't know, I'm contemplating this so much. It's just two impressions. If I don't like it, I can just do it over again. Okay, let's do it in gray. Or I can do it in, you know, kind of a fusion. I can run a little bit of black in there or something like that. But let's just keep it simple here. Alright, let's stamp it. I'll just go, you know, fairly central with it. My pencils here I haven't used in probably, boy, since I don't know, pre-1990. It's funny, I had them kind of bound with a rubber band, and that rubber band since disintegrated, so we're talking a very long time. Luckily, the art supplies don't kind of wear out. Alright, this is called Shimmering here, okay? And we'll kind of create this kind of reflective, you know, light type of thing on the water here. And let's do it in black, okay? Things in the foreground are usually a little bit, or things that are closer to you, or us as a viewer, are usually a little bit darker. In terms of just kind of pushing distance, and I'll kind of roughly line that up with the reflective area, okay? And rather than this kind of just being kind of the open ocean, we'll say this is kind of in a little bit of a cove. So that being said, let's put some foreground in there. And yeah, let's do it in black. I always kind of create a little bit of an opening here for the viewer's eye to enter the scene. Okay, let's see. Let's see if I remember how to use pencils, but I've never done them like this with stamps. So, just in general, there's a rating on your different types of pencils. You don't have to use all these types, but the H's, I don't know what that means. In my head, I always just thought of it as 6 hard. So the hardness, the higher the number, the more dense the lead, the lighter it will draw on your surface. So, it's just like, my gosh, this is like using a piece of like wire, It is so hard. But I don't know, we can kind of do something like the approach that I use in dye-based inks. I usually start very light, and then I work incrementally darker. Well, that's kind of the idea with something like this. You kind of start light, and then you work incrementally darker up your kind of your value scale. Okay. And you can go for some variation too. You don't have to fill in this whole area. But maybe this is so light I will. So I'm catching the side of this piece of paper here. I'll go like that off the paper maybe, so I won't catch it coming back. I have to kind of learn my technique here. This is the first time this pencil has not been sharpened in decades, so... I was looking to see if I had a pencil sharpener. I didn't. In my tool case, my school tool case, art bin they call it. They used to want us to sharpen our pencils with a little bit of like a razor in class. It's like the zen of pencil sharpening or something like that. That wasn't really my preference, though. Okay, we want to define some lights on that roof. I don't know if you can even see what's going on here. This is so light. I seem to be getting a little bit of a darker tone, though. I'm kind of using this on its side just to give myself a little bit more coverage. Okay, so we're still going to develop our lighting in here, so it's always the case here with the that moon. If you want that to kind of appear nice and light, then we have to kind of take the area around it, make it darker, so we can kind of look at our design here, and you'll see the darks and lights within the design. Okay, and I'll kind of follow that same lighting convention Okay. Here's the thing, I gotta get used to the pressures, okay? If you press harder with this pencil, of course, you're going to be getting a darker mark, okay? And with something like pencils, as I'm doing this, I mean, you could do it where you're just getting a very, very soft application of it. But as is the case with something like this, you can go for kind of some more textural or textured applications of it, you know, so you can kind of see more of the, you know, kind of the hand of the artist type of thing, you know, where you can show your marks a little bit more. Should you want to. Alright, adding some of this to the clouds in here. Being careful not to. I do want to retain some of the lights within the clouds. I can see on the design I've left, you know, this kind of silver line cloud type of thing. So I'm going to retain that, but, you know, mostly when I get into my darker tones. Okay. Maybe the bees or something like that. One thing I hate right now is the edge of this. It's, you know, catching that when I'm cutting in there, so. It's kind of interesting doing this, though. I really have to kind of get a feel for that rendering, but well, after a little bit, this toning, it's kind of becoming a little bit more intuitive. Okay, now we have the vertical edges of these huts right here. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll come in here and I will darken those. Okay, if I add some tone to it, then it gives the illusion that the rooftops are now catching some of that light, right? So they're more illuminated, but here's some different types of palm trees. Maybe they're, you know, casting their shadow on, you know, some of these rooftops. I don't know, you can kind of go in the direction, you know, the roof a little bit. If we don't like anything, there's something called an eraser, which I'm sure I'll be using at some point in time. Yeah, this is working. I'm kind of holding this down and going like this, and I'm not catching the edge of that piece of paper so much. This 6H barely visible. It is so light in value because it is so hard, and as far as its density goes. Wow. Okay. All right, moving on. 5H, I don't know. Does it even matter? It's a little bit darker, I can tell. I don't know. There's a bit of a jump in value. You can see it right there. Huh. I didn't think it would matter. I didn't think there would be such a change from one to the next. Okay. Kind of keeping this a little bit more perimeter oriented, maybe. I have a lot of colors to come, so I won't keep it too perimeter oriented, okay? But maybe just a little bit. Pulling this out a little bit more from the background, defining some shadows within the forms. Okay. Alright, what do I have here? 4B. I didn't think I had the full range. Maybe yeah, I think I'm missing a couple pencils, and there's a couple that I didn't even know what they were. It's like a HB. Maybe that's the middle one. Okay, it's still, and this one feels, well, and yeah, I guess it is different. Just when I think it doesn't seem to really be doing anything, then I noticed, I guess it is. I have all the B's to go through, so maybe I should kind of go a little bit darker with all these previous ones. These harder ones, maybe I can get some texture on these rooftops. Kind of going with the slant of the I don't know what you call these, kind of thatched. Alright. 3 pencils, barely anything. Okay. 2H. Okay, now this one's noticeably softer. See that? And darker, I think. Kind of carrying out this cloud to the edge of the card. It didn't stamp all the way off, and I have a little bit of that line right there. I can see this, you know, I don't know, potentially looking like a pencil drawing as I move through this. We'll see. Like I said, if it's stamped in like a, kind of a, maybe a 70% gray or something like that, that would be really good. Or if I had like a silver-ish kind of pad, maybe something like that would be kind of interesting. As a starting point, I don't know. Not really sure. Because of the kind of the reflective nature of this graphite. This graphite, yeah, you would think it'd be kind of more neutral, but to me it has a little bit of a slight warmth to it. Alright, look at that. Look how much darker it gets on that. Maybe, can I? I'm going fairly hard on this paper, and it doesn't get nearly as dark as it does on the copy paper. I don't know, maybe this paper is much more dense, or maybe it is, it's not coated on the back, it's single-sided. Single-sided glossy. Maybe it's only glossy on one side. Maybe it is coated on this, this other side, though. The back side of it. And if you're working with kind of a nicer paper too, it would probably have a little bit more tooth to it, which is more conducive for the pencil applications too. So, but this is what we're working in. Let's see how it goes. H. Well, every time I try to change pencils here, my first thought is, it's not really that big of a difference, if anything. In fact, this one, it really doesn't. It really feels really hard. It feels almost as hard as that, what was it? The 6H. Yeah, it feels like a piece of wire that I'm trying to draw with. Okay, that one's not going to do much. Okay, here's the HB. Maybe it's because I have so much graphite laid down, so it's like graphite, and it's not really applying very much. I suppose that could be the, the condition of the, or the situation, rather. Yeah, I bet you that's what it is. Yeah, because when I draw it down there, you know, on the paper that where there's still a little bit more tooth to it, it's applying easier. Maybe I can get this to work to my benefit by having it apply very slowly and carefully, especially considering my experience level with it, which is practically nil. Might have to work on it into the much softer, I call it leads, the graphites, really. Yeah, but this surface is really kind of, I feel like I've kind of achieved a super saturation with it. Really having a hard time getting an application of this down. Okay, let's see. What do we have here? Bees. Ooh, getting pretty soft. Okay. B applies pretty nicely. Yeah, the bees apply very easy. Or this one so far. Look at that kind of rendering up there. It's very soft. I can't imagine when I get to like the 6B how that one's going to be. The question is, how dark do I... This is actually starting to bow a little bit on me. I'm not sure if it's because of the marks that I keep putting down. Okay, let's see here. Wow, this is really, really soft. Okay, let's get those huts to stand out a little bit more. So I'll just make the area behind them darker. Okay. It's taking on a different spirit for sure with this bee. I guess it's allowing me to do more of what I'm kind of going after in terms of the rendering of lighting, or the defining of lighting by the use of shade. And I'm just kind of going in and I'm just kind of reiterating again what's kind of within the cloud design. So I'm just kind of following that, retaining the lighter areas of the image, okay, and just reiterating the shading within the design. So if there's a lot of like stippled dots, I'm applying more graphite to it. Okay, starting to come around a bit. Let's create a little bit of variation within the water. That's the passage of light, but does it mean you can't have some lighter areas, in some other areas, okay? It doesn't have to be only on that narrow kind of area. much lighter value by just using less pressure. Okay. Now these are shimmering design, has those streaks in it, so I'm going to start adding some of those additional streaks using this pencil to carry out that texture so that it's not solely created by that stamp. You know, you can do some using the graphite as well, just for a little bit of continuity. Alright, what is after B? Oh, I have a 3B. I guess I don't have a 1B and a 2B. Maybe those were so soft I used them up or something like that. Stands to reason that I'd have less B's than H's because the B's would really wear down a lot faster. This can get pretty dark, I can see. I feel like I've achieved kind of maximum saturation again because this isn't really applying very distinctly. It's almost like you have to kind of jump a few steps after it starts getting really kind of coated in that graphite. Then you have to kind of go, I don't know, a decent density away from, you know, that existing layering in order for it to read. And I can see it a little bit, but it's very subtle. I need my kneadable eraser. I think I'll be defining some of the highlights with that. Okay. Look at that stubby little 4B here. Let me see, that was a 3B. Let me see if I have enough on here. Yeah, pretty dark. It really applies. It's very reflective too. See that? All that graphite on there. Alright, what do we have? What's F? I have no idea what it... That's kind of hard. Okay, I don't have a 6B. Or if I do, it's not sharpened off to... Ooh, this one's another 4B though. That looks really, looks really dark. Alright, I like to kind of frame things off in a little bit of a vignette, of course. I say of course, I do that in dye-based inks all the time. Top right left and bottom right left corners, make them darker just to kind of frame things in a little bit more. I don't know if that does. Alright. It's kind of interesting. I like it in the sky quite a bit. Kind of those soft, kind of mottled forms of the clouds came out pretty good. There's something to kind of a more specific medium like this than kind of sponges, you know, that I'm normally working in. So it's different. Different and much more specific. Alright, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to look for my kneadable eraser and see what I can do about doing some reverse marks on here. But kind of interesting. Okay, I found my one of my kneadable erasers. This is my student kneadable eraser. It's got a ton of charcoal in there, and this is like hard as a rock. I can barely move it. I do have another one though, but I'm not sure where it is. Nowhere. Alright. Let me see if this is still working. Anyways, we can go in here and define some more specifics. I do have this other eraser here. It's coated in charcoal or something like that. It's kind of sticky. Let's see if I can go in and kind of put some kind of like more specific streaks in here. See what I can do. Just kind of winging it, like all my videos. Okay. I'm kind of putting this on edge. What I'm doing is I'm using an angle, but this eraser is so gummed up, I'm not sure if it's doing. See, I'm kind of coming out from these areas and going out there a little bit. Maybe I'm doing it too far. Maybe I should just come out a little bit. Okay, like so. And the rooftops here got a little bit too dark. I want to bring some of those out a little bit more, so this eraser is driving me nuts. I'm gonna try to whatever's on there, I need to take it off. I'll just take it off with this X-Acto blade. I feel like I'm doing an eraser carving or something like that. Alright. Feels like a fish cake I'm cutting or something like that. Alright. Let me see here. I think this is, I'm going to try to give myself a better tool to use. Alright, that might work. Kind of bizarre. Alright, let me see here. I'm going to try to take off some of that graphite off the tops of a couple of these. Rooftops, maybe. See how that goes. It's hard to see where I'm erasing. Trying to get the feel of how much pressure I should use. I mean, I can always just, you know, if I take off too much, I can always just draw it back in, but I'd rather not have to do that if I don't have to. And some of these areas within the water, I took out too much of that lighting within that area. Kind of reintroduce it. Okay, and some of these areas around the clouds, I think. Let's go in and, I don't know, just kind of redefine a little bit of the lighting within there. So, that being said, this, I don't know, can be somewhat of more of a circular process in terms of, you know, you add some media on there and then you kind of take it away and then you can add a little bit more if you want. So it doesn't have to be linear where it's just step one, step two, you know. Doesn't it, you know, it's the thing about this is it's less permanent than laying down some ink on something. Ink and then having it soak into the paper. Kind of adding this to some of these clouds, you know. Clouds start to kind of reflect how much moonlight you want on them. This area right here is a little bit boring back here, so I'm going to introduce a little bit more light back there. Maybe, hopefully a little bit more subtle light, okay? When I'm talking about that, I'm just talking about something like that. You know, just break it up. Same thing back here. Alright. It's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of fun. Effective? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Worth kind of exploring further, maybe, but looks kind of weird in the video, but when you, you know, when I see it kind of firsthand, that kind of that reflective quality is kind of interesting about it. And I would like a different color of black, something, I don't know, maybe a warmer gray would have been good. But see that, you see those kind of subtleties that you can kind of achieve with some of that graphite. I wouldn't go through the entire range of it again probably, but I don't know, maybe one or two of the H's and, you know, primarily B's would be kind of a faster way to go, but I don't know, I like kind of the textural range that you can achieve in it. Might be kind of interesting with certain types of images, more than others maybe. Let me see something here. Some of these areas down here, let me see if I can define some of those rocks a little bit more. That's one of the things I didn't do. I didn't kind of go in and I don't have a good kind of shadow range in here. Everything's kind of fairly light, you know, and I think with a little bit of practice, kind of get the hang of certain things a little bit more. Like down here in these shimmering ripples, I think we can kind of add a little bit more variation with, you know, kind of a darker kind of shadow around it maybe. Like that. It's missing a little bit of variation, I think. Something like that. And some of these rocks kind of underneath the huts, you know, could be a little bit more defined. Something like that. Anyway, so graphite. The Graphite Cove. Graphite Tropical Cove, so. Anyway, fun stuff. Kind of interesting. Kind of interesting to use those pencils again. I probably have graphite all over my finger. Look at that. Oh, that's from the eraser though, but I have it all over my hand like that, bringing back some memories of art school. All right. Further experimentation needed, but not a bad start in terms of at least in terms of the entertainment value on my part. Watching it, I don't know. Thanks for watching.